For those of you who might recognize those sounds, we're going to talk today. We're not doing RPGs in this video.
No.
We're going to be talking about games from Mattel. In particular, football.
Football, which is a sore subject for anyone who's a fan of the New England Patriots.
I don't think there are any of those people left.
Like me.
Anyway, football by Mattel in this video. Woo! Let's have a look.
Yeah! Hello, patrons. This one's for you.
This is all for you. The thing is, I just thought of this. A lot of our European patrons may not know anything about this game, but I'm wondering if there is a similar game that might have been related to football, soccer,
here
in Europe, released around the same time.
You
we don't
entertain
know.
the people.
I'm going to entertain the people by just starting the video. So, guys, I wanted to talk about this game. This is football. Now, this is a reproduction of a game called Football that was created by Mattel back in 1977. And a lot of folks don't realize just how important this game was or is in the development of handheld electronic games. But it really kind of set the standard. In fact, it was really the beginning of that whole handheld game genre. Now, the original of this, go ahead.
We have an update. There was one. Actually.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll try and put the image up.
Great.
There for you to see. So yeah, there was a soccer one.
So let's rephrase this and say, in America, the company Mattel decided to come out with this little electronic handheld version. Now, this is an almost exact copy of the original Mattel.
They rebuilt them.
But this one was created in, I think, 2000. It was just because they knew that people my age were getting to the point where they wanted to have this game again. So, of course, I bought it. But this one, like I said, it's almost an exact copy. Now, what you did with this game is it's very simple. You have the little screen here, for those of you who never played this. It has a little screen here, and they're just some little dots. They're actually dashes on the screen. And using these buttons here, you try to move that your dash, which is the offensive player or ball carrier, from one end of the field to the other, while the other dashes, the opponent dashes, are trying to move forward and bump into you, which is supposed to be a tackle.
You're basically doing like a punt return every time. You're just trying to run from one end of the field to the other end of the field.
But if you move it 10 spaces, that's 10 yards, according to the game, and you have a first down, so you get 4 tries to get your first down. But if you do manage to go 100 spaces, then you end up scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
So this came out when I was in junior high school, and it was unbelievably popular. And I really wanted one of these, but I never had one back in the day. Now, Bill had one. He still has his.
Hi, Bill.
And I believe that he told me that if he puts a battery in it, it still works.
That's why. I mean, it can't be that complicated of a little thing.
Right.
No.
Exactly. But the interesting thing about this is that this was where all of this started. Well, this isn't quite where all of this started. I take that back. This was released in June of 1977, and it was sold at an American retail store known as Sears. Now, there was another video game like this, a handheld video game like this, but it was called Auto Race. And Auto Race was essentially the same game, but the screen was turned on its side. So instead of being horizontal like this, it was vertical. And you did the same thing. You had a dash at the bottom, and you moved back and forth as other dashes dropped down toward you in the same way that they moved toward you this way on the screen for football.
So you're veering through cars.
You're veering through cars, right. You're trying to make your way through to be the car that's in the lead without getting into a crash. So it's the exact same game, just with a vertical screen. That was the first of these handheld games to be released, not just by Mattel, but by anybody. This was a real test of the waters.
More research. Hold on. Continue.
Sure. Now, Auto Race was actually released in 1976, just a few months before Football was released in 1977, in June of 1977. Now, the initial sales were not too bad, but they weren't really great. But Sears used a computer algorithm to decide whether or not this was going to be something that they wanted to have Mattel continue to create for them. And they decided that it really wasn't. So they really started to ramp down, Mattel really started to ramp down the creation of this game. But within a month, 6 weeks after Sears came out with its algorithm-based decision on whether or not they should continue to have the game, they realized that they had made a mistake. And by February of 1978, so just a few months later, they were selling 500,000 of these a week at Sears. Really, really a popular game. Mm-hmm. Now, moving forward, eventually the simplicity of this game, and it could be very addictive at the time. Remember, there were no other competitors for this kind of a thing. So I can remember going into school and kids would just be playing this like crazy. It was kind of the equivalent of people playing on their cell phones today. That was how ubiquitous this was at that time. But eventually it was superseded by things that had more sophistication. They were a little bit more difficult to play, but therefore more challenging. And electronic football from Mattel eventually went by the wayside just a few years later. What did you look up?
It looks like, I was just seeing if there were any other sports that they came out with aside from these two. There were quite a few other ones. There's a basketball one that
which I have
got
over here.
somewhere.
I do have basketball. There was baseball.
There was baseball. That was the other one I saw. Yeah, and it seems like there were some other not sports related ones that have the same overall appearance as this.
Interesting side note on these games. Mattel came out with one. I think it was Mattel that came out with it. I'm almost positive. They came out with one called Missile Attack. Now, many of you might remember Missile Attack as being an actual video game at a video game arcade where you would stand in front of it. There was a trackball, and there were 6 cities that had missiles coming down toward it. And you used this trackball to fire up missiles to try and destroy them before they got to the cities. Missile Attack, if I'm saying if this is the right title for it, I believe it was Missile Attack. If not, I'll put it down on the bottom of the screen. But Missile Attack in this handheld version had an outline of New York City, and there was only one city that you had to defend down at the bottom with the missiles coming in. It had an outline of the skyline of New York City down at the bottom. NBC would not run an advertisement for the game because they were afraid that kids would equate them not saving New York City with the deaths of 8 million people. So they refused to actually carry the advertisements for the game. So the handheld version never went anywhere. What they ended up doing with all the units that they had already produced was they turned it into a Battlestar Galactica game, which was a very popular TV show at the time. And they replaced the image of New York City with a spaceship, and all the things were coming down to destroy the Battlestar Galactica main ship, and you had to defend that instead of defending New York City. Interesting side note.
That is interesting. No, this is just a cool little bit of toy history, which is a fascinating subject.
It really is. This came from... and if you're interested in this kind of thing, I recommend that you go to a website called handheldmuseum.com. Unbelievable amount of information about these kinds of games by every company that created one, along with photographs and trivia and things like that. Just a really interesting website to go and visit. I highly encourage you to do that if you like this kind of history. But anyway, that's all we wanted to do. We just wanted to throw something your way that we thought was interesting, that we thought you might find entertaining. If you love this game, if you have this game, or if you have games that are similar to this from the 70s and 80s, let us know, because we're really interested in this kind of stuff. We're interested in all this geek history stuff.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's all we've got for you. Thanks again for being patrons.
We really
appreciate everything that you have done for us. Look for some information coming out in the next several weeks about a project that we are just wrapping up. We want our patrons to be the first ones to hear about it.
Yeah, you'll get it before anybody
else does. We'll be talking to you. We're excited about it, and we want you to just know about it because we consider you friends of ours. So.
Yes. So, thank you guys so much. You're all the best. Tell your friends.
Tell them what?
Whatever you want.
Works for me.
Yeah.
I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep it short on free, guys.
Bye-bye.